Commander Sarah Chun stared at the data screen in her small office on Mining Station Alpha 7. The numbers did not make sense. For 3 months, she had been checking the supply reports from Earth colonies across the galaxy. Something was very wrong. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago. Sarah pushed a strand of black hair from her eyes and looked at the reports again. According to the official records, human colonies were producing massive amounts of rare metals and crystals. But the supplies coming back to human settlements were almost nothing. Where is it all going? She whispered to herself. Sarah had been working for the Terran Colonial Administration for 15 years. She remembered when the Galactic Council first contacted Earth in 2337. The whole planet had celebrated. Humans were no longer alone in the universe. They were invited to join a peaceful alliance of 12 alien species that had kept peace across the galaxy for thousands of years. At first, everything seemed wonderful. The Council gave humans technology to travel between stars. They offered new worlds to settle. They promised friendship and protection. But humans had to start at the bottom, they said. New species always began with simple jobs until they proved themselves worthy of greater responsibilities. So humans became miners, farmers, and basic workers on distant worlds. The Council said this was normal. Every species had to earn their place in galactic society. Sarah had believed this for 50 years. Now she was not so sure. Sarah opened another file on her computer. This one showed the medical supplies sent to human colonies. The medicines were old and often did not work well. Meanwhile, she had seen Council species using advanced medical devices that could heal almost any injury in minutes. Her door chimed. Sarah quickly closed the files and looked up. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms walked into her office. It was Counselor Zektar from the Hegemony species. He was her supervisor. Commander Chun, Zektar said in his deep voice. I need to speak with you about your recent data requests. Sarah felt her heart beat faster. Is there a problem, sir? Zektar moved closer to her desk. His large black eyes seemed to look right through her. You have been accessing files that are above your security level. This concerns the Council. I was just checking supply records, Sarah said carefully, making sure our colonies have what they need. That is not your job, Zektar replied. Humans are responsible for mining and basic administration only. Resource allocation is handled by senior Council members. Sarah nodded, but said nothing. She had learned that arguing with Council members was useless. Your security clearance has been reduced, Zektar continued. You will only have access to daily work reports from now on. Do you understand? Yes, sir, Sarah said. After Zektar left, Sarah sat alone in her office. Her hands were shaking slightly. She had been asking too many questions, and now they were watching her. 3,000 light years away, Dr. Marcus Volkov was having his own problems. He worked as a xenorchaeologist on the Council world of Kepler 442b. His job was to study ancient alien ruins and catalog artifacts for the Council's museums. Marcus loved his work. He had always been fascinated by ancient history and alien cultures. When the Council offered him this position, he thought it was a dream come true. He would be the first human to study the galaxy's oldest civilizations. But what he had found in the ruins was not what the Council had told him to expect. Marcus stood in the underground chamber he had discovered last week. The walls were covered with strange symbols that glowed softly in the darkness. According to Council records, these ruins were about 2,000 years old and belonged to a primitive species that had died out long ago. The symbols told a different story. Marcus had spent years learning to read ancient alien languages. The hieroglyphs on these walls were much older than 2,000 years. They were at least 10,000 years old, maybe more. And they were not primitive at all. The symbols described a great war. They told of a powerful species called the Architects, who had built amazing cities across the galaxy. They had technology that could move planets and create new stars. But something had happened to them. The symbols were not clear about what, but the Architects had vanished suddenly. After the Architects disappeared, the symbols said 12 species had formed an alliance. They called themselves the Galactic Council. But they had not brought peace to the galaxy. They had conquered it. The symbols showed other species being enslaved or destroyed. World after world fell to the Council's forces. Any species that might become a threat was eliminated. The survivors were kept weak and dependent. Marcus took pictures of the symbols with his scanner. This information was incredibly important. It changed everything humans knew about galactic history. The Council was not a peaceful alliance. It was an empire built on conquest and lies. He was about to send his report to Earth when his scanner detected movement outside the ruins. Marcus looked through a crack in the wall and saw Council security forces surrounding his research station. Dr. Volkov, a voice called through his radio. Please return to your station immediately. We have detected dangerous energy readings. From your location, Marcus knew this was a lie. The ruins were completely safe. He had been working in them for weeks. The Council forces were here because of what he had discovered. Marcus grabbed his scanner and ran deeper into the ruins. He needed to find another way out. The information he carried was too important to lose. Behind him, he heard explosions. The Council forces were destroying the research station. Soon they would come looking for him in the ruins. Marcus found a narrow tunnel that led to the surface. He crawled through it as fast as he could. Above him, he could hear the sounds of weapons fire and shouting. When he finally emerged, his research station was gone. Nothing remained but burning wreckage. The official report would say it was a reactor accident. Marcus was listed as missing and presumed dead. But he was very much alive, hiding in the wilderness with evidence that could change the fate of humanity. Meanwhile, in the outer rim of human space, Admiral James Harrison commanded. The small Terran defense fleet from his flagship, the TCS Endeavour. The fleet consisted of only 50 ships, mostly patrol vessels and cargo escorts. The Council had said that humans did not need a large military force. The galaxy was peaceful, they claimed. The Council would protect human colonies from any threats. Harrison had always felt uneasy about this arrangement. He was a career military officer who had served in Earth's space forces before first contact. Something about the Council's attitude toward human military capabilities bothered him. Tonight, his concerns proved justified. Harrison sat in his command chair, reviewing routine patrol reports, when his communications officer called out urgently. Admiral, I'm picking up encrypted transmissions between Council ships in this sector. Can you decode them? Harrison asked. Working on it, sir. The encryption is complex, but our computers are making progress. 20 minutes later, the translation appeared on Harrison's screen. What he read made his blood run cold. The message was from a Council fleet commander to his superiors. It discussed something called Resource Stock 7 and preparations for final harvest procedures. The message mentioned that the stock had been successfully distributed across multiple worlds and was ready for collection. At the bottom of the message was a species identification code. Harrison recognized it immediately. It was humanity's official designation in Council records. Harrison felt sick. Resource Stock 7. That was how the Council saw humanity. Not as junior partners or allies, but as resources to be harvested when the time was right. The message went on to discuss the unique properties of human neural patterns and how they could be extracted for use in Council biotechnology. It mentioned breeding programs and population controls that had been carefully hidden from human authorities. Harrison called his senior officers to an emergency meeting. Within an hour, 12 of his most trusted commanders gathered in the briefing room of the Endeavor. "What I'm about to tell you must not leave this room," Harrison began. He activated the holographic display and showed them the intercepted message. The room fell silent as the officers read the translation. Captain Martinez, Harrison's oldest friend, spoke first. "They're planning to harvest us," he said quietly. "Like livestock." Harrison nodded grimly. "It appears that way. The question is, what do we do about it?" "We warn Earth immediately," said Commander Thompson. "And then what?" Harrison asked. "We have 50 ships. The Council has millions. Even if we could get the message through their communications monitoring, what could Earth do?" The officers sat in stunned silence. They all knew Harrison was right. Humanity's military forces were tiny compared to the Council's vast fleets. Any open rebellion would be crushed quickly and completely. "There might be another way," said Captain Rivera, the fleet's intelligence officer. "I've been monitoring some unusual communications from Earth for the past few months. Coded transmissions using old military frequencies that were supposed to be discontinued decades ago." Harrison leaned forward. "What kind of transmissions?" "I'm not sure, sir. But they're coming from locations that don't officially exist. Deep space coordinates with." Dr. Elena Vasquez had been waiting for this moment for 30 years. She stood in the control room of the Titan Research Facility, deep beneath the frozen surface of Saturn's largest moon. Around her, dozens of scientists and engineers worked, at stations filled with equipment that officially did not exist. "Admiral Harrison's message came through the quantum relay 10 minutes ago," reported her assistant, Dr. Kim. "He's confirmed the Council's intentions. Resource Stock 7 protocols are active." Elena nodded calmly. She had known this day would come eventually. The signs had been clear for decades to anyone who knew how to look. Now it was time to reveal what humanity had really been doing for the past 50 years. "Send the activation codes to all Project Lazarus facilities," she ordered. "It's time to wake up." Project Lazarus had begun in secret just 5 years after first contact with the Galactic Council. While most of humanity celebrated their new place in galactic society, a small group of Earth's leaders had been more cautious. They noticed how the Council treated older member species. They saw the restrictions placed on human technology and military development. Most importantly, they recognized the pattern. Every species that joined the Council started the same way. They were given basic technology and simple jobs. They were told to be patient and prove themselves worthy. But none of them ever seemed to advance beyond their starting positions. The Aquari had been mining water worlds for 300 years. The Cryston had been processing minerals for even longer. No species ever rose to join the Council's inner circle. So while humanity publicly accepted their role as junior members, they secretly began the largest military development program in Earth's history. Elena walked to a massive window that looked out into space. What appeared to be empty void was actually filled with invisible ships, hidden by advanced stealth technology that made them undetectable to Council sensors. "Status report on the fleet activation," she called out. "All sectors." "Reporting ready," came the reply from the communications station. "Hidden facilities across 400 star systems are powering up. Ship construction bays are opening. Defense platforms are coming online." Elena smiled. The Council thought they had scattered humanity across the galaxy to make them easier to control. In reality, they had given humans the perfect opportunity to build a vast network of hidden military installations. Every human colony world had been selected for more than just its mining potential. Each one was positioned at a strategic location that would allow human forces to control key space routes. Every simple mining operation had concealed advanced manufacturing facilities. Every agricultural world had hidden training grounds where humans learned to use weapons and tactics that would have impressed even the Council's best military commanders. Dr. Vasquez called out another technician. We're receiving confirmation signals from the sleeper fleets. All ships are responding normally. The sleeper fleets were Elena's proudest achievement. For decades, human engineers had been building warships in secret facilities hidden throughout the galaxy. The ships used technology that was far beyond anything the Council possessed. But they had remained dormant, powered down and invisible, waiting for the activation signal. Each ship was equipped with drives that could fold space-time, allowing them to travel faster than anything in the Council's navy. Their weapons used controlled antimatter reactions that could destroy targets at the molecular level. Most impressive of all, they carried artificial intelligence systems that could think and react faster than any biological crew. How many ships are we bringing online? Elena asked. Final count is 50,000 vessels, ma'am. Everything from single-pilot fighters to dreadnought-class battleships, plus another 20,000 support ships and mobile construction platforms. Elena felt a moment of satisfaction. 50,000 ships was more than the Council had in their entire active fleet. And these were not the primitive vessels the Council expected humans to build. These were war machines designed by Earth's best minds and built with resources gathered from across the galaxy. But ships were only part of the plan. Elena walked to another station where biologists and geneticists were monitoring data from human colonies throughout Council space. Report on the liberation protocols, she ordered. Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from her screen. We're ready to begin Phase 1. Our medical teams have developed treatments that can reverse the genetic modifications the Council has been secretly introducing into human populations. Elena frowned. Genetic modifications? Yes, ma'am. We discovered them about 10 years ago. The Council has been adding compounds to human food supplies that were designed to make us more compliant and less aggressive. They've also been using medical treatments to subtly alter human genetics, trying to make us better suited for manual labor. Can you reverse the effects? Completely. In fact, removing the modifications actually makes humans stronger and smarter than we were before. The Council's tampering seems to have accidentally improved our natural abilities. Elena shook her head. Even when they were trying to weaken humanity, the Council had managed to make them stronger. It was almost amusing. What? About the other species? She asked. Have we learned anything about their situations? Dr. Kim brought up a new display showing genetic data from various alien species. It's worse than we thought, ma'am. The Council has been systematically modifying every species under their control. The Zephyrians were once a proud warrior culture, but the Council has been using genetic treatments to make them more obedient. The Kristen Collective had amazing abilities to process information, but most of their population has been harvested for their neural networks. Elena felt anger growing in her chest. The Council was not just planning to harvest humanity. They had already destroyed dozens of other civilizations, turning proud species into slaves and resources. Have we made contact with any resistance? Groups among the other species? Yes, ma'am. We've been secretly providing medical treatments to reverse genetic modifications on several worlds. The Zephyrians are especially eager to help. Their warrior traditions are still strong beneath the Council's modifications. Once we cure them, they'll be powerful allies. Elena moved to the strategic planning station, where military experts were coordinating with resistance cells across the galaxy. Admiral Harrison's fleet is in position? She asked Colonel Rodriguez, the facility's military commander. Yes, ma'am. All defense fleet ships have been secretly upgraded with our advanced technology. The Council thinks they're watching 50 obsolete patrol boats. They're actually facing 50 of the most advanced warships ever built. And our infiltration teams? Already in place on every major Council world. They're prepared to disable communications and defense systems when we give the signal. The Council won't know what hit them until it's too late. Elena walked back to the main display, which now showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Council strongholds. Blue dots showed human positions. Green dots indicated allied resistance groups. The map looked like a chessboard in the final moments of the game. The Council thought they controlled the board, but they had been surrounded without realizing it. "Ma'am," called out the communications. "Officer, we're receiving a priority message from Dr. Marcus Volkov." Elena turned in surprise. "I thought Dr. Volkov was dead." "Apparently not. He's transmitting from the Kepler system using an emergency beacon. He says he has critical information about Council history that could change everything." Elena authorized the connection. A holographic image of Marcus Volkov appeared in the center of the room. He looked tired and dirty, but very much alive. "Dr. Vasquez, thank God you're receiving this. I've discovered something incredible in the ancient ruins. The Council is not what they claim to be. We already know they're planning to harvest humanity, Marcus. We're preparing our response now." Marcus shook his head urgently. "It's bigger than that. The Council didn't create galactic civilization. They stole it. There was another species, called the Architects, who built most of the technology the Council uses. The Council destroyed them and took over their empire." Elena felt a chill. "Are you certain?" "Completely. I have recordings of hieroglyphs that tell the whole story. The Architects were incredibly advanced. They could manipulate space and time, create new forms of matter, even bring dead worlds back to life. But something happened to them about 10,000 years ago." "What happened?" "I'm not sure yet. The records are incomplete. But I think they didn't just disappear. I think they hid themselves somehow, waiting for the right moment to return." Elena thought about this information. If the Architects were still out there somewhere, they might be powerful allies against the Council. "Can you make it to a safe location?" she asked Marcus. "We need that information." "I'm already on my way to rendezvous coordinates that Admiral Harrison provided. I should reach you within 3 days." The transmission ended, leaving Elena with new questions. But she could not delay the operation to wait for answers. The Council's harvest protocols were already beginning. Human colonies throughout the galaxy were reporting increased Council military presence and unexplained medical requirements. "Begin final preparations," she ordered. "All forces are to be ready for." Admiral James Harrison stood on the bridge of the TCS Endeavour as it dropped out of hyperspace near Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, their faces calm despite the enormous battle they were about to begin. "Admiral, all task force ships are in position," reported Captain Martinez from the tactical station. "Stealth fields are holding. The Council fleet has no idea we're here." Harrison nodded and looked at the main display screen. Nexus Prime hung in space like a jewel, its surface covered with massive cities that housed billions of Council citizens. Around the planet, thousands of Council warships patrolled in defensive formations. The Council fleet looked impressive. But Harrison knew better. His 50 ships carried more firepower than all of those vessels combined. "Communications. Patch me through to all human forces across the galaxy," Harrison ordered. The communications officer worked for a moment, then nodded. "Channel open, sir. All units are standing by." Harrison took a deep breath. This was the moment that would change everything. "This is Admiral Harrison to all human forces. Operation Liberation begins now. Remember, we fight not just for humanity, but for every species the Council has enslaved. Show them what happens when they underestimate Earth's children. All units, execute your orders." Across the galaxy, 50,000 human ships suddenly appeared from stealth positions. They had been hidden near every major Council stronghold, waiting for this moment. Now they struck simultaneously at 17 different star systems. On the bridge of the Endeavour, Harrison watched as his tactical display lit up with battle reports from across human space. Admiral, Phoenix Squadron is engaging Council forces. At the Vega system, reported the communications officer, they report heavy resistance, but are proceeding with the mission. Titan Group has reached the prison world of Kepler-7, came another report. They're beginning liberation operations now. Harrison smiled grimly. The Council was about to learn that their careful strategy of scattering humanity across the galaxy had backfired completely. Instead of making humans easier to control, it had given them perfect positions to strike at every important Council facility at once. Enemy fleet is responding to our presence, called out the tactical officer. 2,000 Council ships are moving to intercept us. Let them come, Harrison replied. Weapons, prepare to demonstrate our new capabilities. The first wave of Council ships approached the human fleet with confidence. They outnumbered Harrison's forces 40-1 and believed their weapons were superior to anything humans could build. They were wrong. Harrison's ships used technology that the Council had never seen before. As the enemy vessels closed to attack range, the human ships simply vanished. Phase shift complete, reported the tactical officer. We're now operating in shifted space-time. Enemy weapons cannot target us. Harrison watched as confused Council. Ships fired their weapons at empty space where the human fleet had been moments before. The Council forces could still see the human ships on their sensors, but their weapons passed harmlessly through them. Now show them what our weapons can do, Harrison ordered. The human ships fired back from their shifted position. Their weapons were based on controlled antimatter reactions that could tear apart the molecular structure of any target. Council. Ships that had survived hundreds of battles simply came apart as the human weapons hit them in minutes. Half of the attacking Council fleet was destroyed. The surviving ships retreated in panic, sending desperate messages to their command centers. Sir, we're receiving Council communications, reported the listening post officer. They're calling for reinforcements from every system. They're also asking their scientists how human weapons can be so advanced. Harrison almost felt sorry for them. The Council had spent so much effort keeping other species primitive that they had forgotten what a truly advanced civilization could accomplish. Meanwhile, 3,000 light-years away, Commander Sarah Chun was leading a very different kind of mission. Her task force had reached the prison world of Alcor 4, where the Council kept thousands of beings from species they had conquered. Stealth approach complete, reported her pilot. Enemy sensors show no sign of detecting us. Sarah looked at the planet below. According to intelligence reports, the Council had built massive underground facilities where they conducted experiments on captured aliens. The official records claimed this was a research station studying primitive life forms. The truth was much darker. Launch the infiltration teams, Sarah ordered. Remember, our goal is to rescue the prisoners and gather evidence of Council crimes. Try to avoid civilian casualties. Small human ships detached from the main vessels and flew toward the planet's surface. They used advanced stealth technology that made them invisible to Council sensors. Within minutes, human soldiers were inside the prison facilities. What they found was worse than anyone had expected. Commander Chun, this is Team Alpha, came the voice of Sergeant Williams over the radio. You need to see this. We found thousands of beings in stasis chambers. They appear to be from species that the Council claims are extinct. Sarah felt sick. Are they alive? Yes, ma'am. Barely. It looks like the Council has been keeping them alive to harvest their genetic, material, and neural patterns. Some of these beings have been here for centuries. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. This was exactly what the Council had planned for humanity. They would have been kept alive just long enough to be useful, then disposed of when they were no longer needed. Begin. Extraction procedures immediately, she ordered. Get everyone out of there. There's something else, Commander. We found council scientists here who say they want to help. They claim they didn't know what was really happening and want to make things right. Sarah was suspicious. Are you sure they can be trusted? I think so, ma'am. They're providing access codes and helping us free the prisoners. One of them says he has files that prove the council has been doing this to species for thousands of years. As Sarah's teams worked to free the prisoners, similar operations were taking place across the galaxy. Human forces were liberating Council, prison worlds, destroying weapons facilities, and rescuing enslaved populations. But the most important battle was happening at Nexus Prime, where Admiral Harrison faced the Council's main fleet. Admiral, enemy reinforcements are arriving, reported the tactical officer. We now count over 10,000 Council ships in this system. Harrison remained calm. How many of our ships have arrived? All reserve squadrons are in position, sir. We have 500 vessels ready for combat. The odds were still 20-1 against the humans, but Harrison was not worried. His ships had advantages the Council could not match. Begin Phase 2 of the attack, he ordered. Show them what happens when they face human engineering. The human ships shifted back into normal space, but this time they did something that shocked the Council forces. Each human vessel began to split apart, revealing that what had appeared to be single ships were actually clusters of smaller vessels disguised as one unit. Harrison's 500 ships became 2,500 individual fighters, each one armed with weapons that could destroy much larger vessels. Swarm formation, Harrison ordered. Attack pattern Delta. The human fighters moved like a school of fish, flowing around the larger Council ships and striking from all directions at once. The Council forces tried to respond, but their ships were too big and slow to track the fast-moving human vessels. Sir, enemy command ship is trying to retreat, reported the tactical officer. Don't let them escape. I want to have a conversation with the Council leadership. Human fighters surrounded the massive Council command vessel, disabling its engines and weapons without destroying it. Similar actions were taking place throughout the battle zone, as human forces captured rather than killed their enemies whenever possible. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The mighty Council fleet that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years lay in ruins around Nexus Prime. Those ships that had not been destroyed had surrendered. Admiral, we're receiving surrender. Requests from Council forces in 14 other systems, reported the communications officer. It appears our simultaneous attacks had been successful across the board. Harrison allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The first phase of Operation Liberation had succeeded beyond their best hopes, but he knew this was only the beginning. Open a channel to the Council leadership on Nexus Prime, he ordered. A few minutes later, the main screen showed the face of Prime Coordinator Vex Thalen, the leader of the hegemony species and chairman of the Galactic Council. The alien's usually proud expression was replaced by shock and fear. Who are you? Vex Thalen demanded. How do humans possess such advanced technology? Harrison smiled coldly. We're the species you tried to harvest, Coordinator. We're the ones you thought were too primitive to be a threat. And we've been preparing for this day since the moment we learned what you really are. This is impossible, Vex Thalen said. Our intelligence reports show that humans have no advanced military technology. Your entire fleet consists of obsolete patrol vessels. Your intelligence was wrong, Harrison replied. We've been hiding our true capabilities for 50 years, waiting for you to reveal your real. Dr. Marcus Volkov sat in the underground archive chamber, carefully translating the ancient symbols that covered the walls. 3 days had passed since the human fleet's victories, and news of the battles was spreading across the galaxy faster than the Council could stop it. This is incredible, Marcus whispered as he worked. These records change everything we thought we knew about galactic history. Around him, other members of his rescue team searched through the ruins for more artifacts. They had established a hidden base in the ancient underground city, safe from council search parties that still roamed the surface. Marcus activated his recording device and began to speak. Personal log, Dr. Marcus Volkov, Day 3 after liberation. I have completed my translation of the Central Archive Chamber. What I have discovered will shock the entire galaxy. He paused to look at the glowing symbols one more time, making sure his translation was correct. The species we know as the Galactic Council were not the first galactic civilization. They were the survivors of a great war that took place over 10,000 years ago. The real rulers of the galaxy were called the Architects. Marcus moved to a different section of wall where the symbols told a different part of the story. According to these records, the Architects were incredibly advanced. They could manipulate space and time, create matter from pure energy, and even bring dead worlds back to life. They built most of the technology that the Council claims as their own achievements. The symbols showed images of magnificent cities floating in space, ships that moved faster than light, and beings of incredible power who could reshape reality with their thoughts. But something went wrong. The records indicate that 12 species within the Architect Empire became jealous of their creator's power. They formed a secret alliance and launched a surprise attack during a period of peace. Marcus felt sadness as he read about the war that followed. The 12 rebel species had used the Architect's own technology against them, turning their creations into weapons of destruction. The war lasted for centuries. The Architects were more powerful, but they were outnumbered and had been caught unprepared. Eventually, they realized they could not win through force. The most interesting part of the story was what happened next. Instead of fighting to the death, the Architects had chosen a different path. The final records are unclear, but it appears the Architects did not simply die out. They used their advanced technology to hide themselves somehow, waiting for the right time to return. The symbols suggest they found a way to exist outside normal space-time. Marcus was about to continue his translation when his radio crackled. To life, Dr. Volkov, this is Admiral Harrison. We need you to broadcast your findings immediately. Something is happening across the galaxy. Marcus activated his transmitter. Admiral, what's the situation? The Council is falling apart faster than we expected. Species throughout their empire are rebelling. But that's not the biggest news. We're detecting strange energy signatures appearing near ancient ruins on dozens of worlds. Marcus felt excitement growing in his chest. What kind of energy signatures? Unknown technology, far more advanced than anything we've seen before. It matches some of the readings we've been getting from the ruins you're studying. Marcus looked at the glowing symbols around him. Admiral, I think the Architects are coming back. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian homeworld of Kepler-9, something extraordinary was happening. The proud warrior species had been enslaved by the Council for over 300 years. Their natural aggression suppressed by genetic modifications that made them obedient servants. But the human medical teams had arrived with treatments that could reverse those modifications. Chief Warrior Thektar felt the changes happening in his body as the human medicine worked. The fog that had clouded his mind for his entire life was lifting. The artificial calmness that had made him accept Council rule was disappearing. For the first time in 3 centuries, a Zephyrian warrior was thinking clearly. My people, Thektar called out to the crowd gathered in the central square of their capital city, we have been living a lie. The Council has poisoned our minds and stolen our strength. But the humans have given us a cure. Around him, thousands of other Zephyrians were experiencing the same awakening. Their eyes, which had been dull and lifeless under Council control, now burned with the fire of their ancestors. The humans fight for our freedom, Thektar continued. They ask nothing in return except that we stand with them against our oppressors. Will we answer their call? The roar that answered him could be heard across the entire planet. The Zephyrian. Warrior clans were awakening, and they remembered how to fight. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the aquatic world of Kepler-15, the deep sweller species emerged from their underwater cities for the first time in decades. They had been forced to live in hiding while the Council strip-mined their oceans. Now they surfaced by the millions, ready to reclaim their world. On the crystal fields of Vega 7, the few surviving members of the Christian Collective felt their neural networks reconnecting as human. Technology freed them from Council control systems. Their ability to process vast amounts of information instantly made them perfect allies for coordinating the rebellion. But the most important development was happening in the deep space between star systems, where Admiral Harrison's fleet had detected the strange energy signatures. Admiral, sensors are showing massive distortions in spacetime, reported the science officer aboard the TCS Endeavour. Whatever is causing this is using technology beyond our current understanding. Harrison studied the readings on his display screen. The energy patterns were unlike anything in Council databases or human records. They seemed to bend the laws of physics themselves. "Are they hostile?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. The signatures are too complex for our computers to analyze fully, but they're appearing near ancient ruins on 47 different worlds." Harrison made a decision. Set course for the nearest signature. It's time to find out who our mysterious visitors are. The Endeavour and its escort ships jumped hyperspace, heading for an ancient world called Kepler Prime. According to Council records, it was a dead planet with some old ruins that had no strategic value. The records were wrong. When Harrison's ships dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler Prime, they found a sight that left the entire crew speechless. The dead planet was very much alive, covered with cities that glowed with soft light. Ships moved between massive structures that floated in the planet's atmosphere without any visible means of support. "Admiral," whispered the communications officer, "we're being scanned by technology that's at least 1,000 years ahead of ours." "Are they trying to communicate?" Harrison asked. "Yes, sir. We're receiving a transmission on frequencies we didn't even know existed." A main screen activated, showing a figure that was clearly not from any species in Council records. It was tall and graceful, with features that seemed to shift and change as Harrison watched. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Greetings, children of Earth," the being said. "We are the architects. We have been waiting for you." Harrison felt his heart racing. "You're the original builders of galactic civilization." "We are what remains of that civilization, yes. We have watched your species with great interest since you first reached the stars. You have done something we did not expect." "What's that?" Harrison asked. "You have succeeded where we failed. You have united the galaxy's oppressed species against their oppressors. You have given them hope." The being's image became clearer, showing a face that was both ancient and timeless. "The 12 species that destroyed our empire did so because they feared losing their power. They created the Council to ensure that no species could ever challenge them again. But you survived," Harrison said. "We exist outside normal time and space now. We can observe, but we cannot directly interfere. That is why we have been waiting for a species like yours to emerge." Harrison was confused. What makes humans special? The architect smiled, an expression that seemed both sad and hopeful. "You are not bound by the limitations that held back other species. When faced with impossible odds, you do not surrender. You adapt, you innovate, you find new ways to fight. Most importantly, you do not seek to replace one form of oppression with another." "What do you mean?" "We have watched many species rebel against the Council over the millennia. Most of them, when they gained power, simply became new oppressors. They repeated the same mistakes that created the problem in the first place. The architect moved closer to the screen. But your species is different. You fight not for conquest, but for liberation. You share your technology instead of hoarding it. You heal instead of harm. This is why we have chosen to reveal ourselves. Now, Harrison felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What do you want from us? We want to offer you our knowledge and our assistance. The Council still has resources and weapons you have not yet encountered. They will not surrender easily. What kind of weapons? Planet killers, reality disruptors, weapons that can unravel the fabric of space-time itself. They have kept these hidden since the ancient war, but they will use them now that their empire is threatened. Harrison felt cold fear in his stomach. Can you help us stop them? Admiral James Harrison stood in the quantum communication chamber aboard the TCS Endeavour, watching as reality itself seemed to bend and twist around him. The architects had summoned him to a meeting that would take place not in normal space, but in the realm between dimensions where they now existed. Are you ready, Admiral? The architect's voice echoed through the chamber. What you are about to see will change your understanding of everything. Harrison nodded. I'm ready. The world around him dissolved, and suddenly he was standing in a vast space filled with swirling colors and impossible geometry. Before him stood beings of incredible beauty and power, their forms shifting between energy and matter as they moved. Welcome to the Nexus, the lead architect said. This is where we have existed since we withdrew from the physical universe 10,000 years ago. Harrison looked around in wonder. How is this possible? We learned to exist partially outside the normal flow of time and space. From here, we can observe all of history simultaneously. We have watched the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars, the endless cycle of creation and destruction. Another architect moved forward. But we have never seen anything like what your species has accomplished. In 50 years, you have done what we could not do in 10,000. What do you mean? Harrison asked. You have united the galaxy not through conquest, but through inspiration. Species that hated each other for millennia are now working together. Civilizations that had given up hope are rebuilding themselves. You have given them something we never could. What's that? The belief that change is possible, that oppression does not have to be permanent. Yet even the mightiest empire can fall if enough people stand together against it. The lead architect gestured, and images appeared in the space around them. Harrison saw scenes from across the galaxy, former council worlds celebrating their freedom, rescued prisoners being reunited with families they thought were dead, species working together to rebuild what the council had destroyed. But the council is not finished, the architect continued. They are preparing to use weapons that could destroy entire star systems. They would rather see the galaxy burn than lose their power. Harrison felt anger rising in his chest. Then we'll stop them. With what? Your ships are advanced, but they cannot defend against weapons that attack the very fabric of reality itself. The architect waved his hand, and new images appeared. Harrison saw massive devices hidden in the deepest parts of council space, weapons that looked like they could tear holes in the universe itself. These are reality disruptors, the architect explained. They were built during our war and sealed away afterward because they were too dangerous to use. They can unravel the quantum structure of matter, turning entire planets into nothing. Harrison stared at the images in horror. How do we fight something like that? You cannot fight them directly, but there is another way. The space around them changed again, showing Harrison a view of the galaxy from an impossible perspective. He could see the flow of energy between stars, the hidden connections that linked all living things. The Council's weapons draw their power from the quantum foundation of the universe itself. But that same foundation can be used to heal instead of destroy. I don't understand, the architect smiled. Your species has a unique gift, Admiral. You do not just adapt to change, you cause it. You take broken things and make them whole again. This is why we have chosen to share our greatest secret with you. What secret? The knowledge of how to repair reality itself. Images flowed through Harrison's mind, showing him principles of physics and engineering that human science had never dreamed of. He saw how space and time could be woven back together after being torn apart, how dead worlds could be brought back to life, how entire civilizations could be restored from nothing but memory and will. This is incredible, Harrison breathed. But why give this to us? Why not use it yourselves? Because we learned, too late, that power without wisdom is the path to destruction. We became so focused on our own greatness that we forgot to nurture those who looked up to us. We created the conditions that led to our own downfall. Another architect joined the conversation. Your species is different. When you gain power, you use it to lift others up, not to hold them down. When you discover new knowledge, you share it freely. This is why the galaxy's future must be in your hands, not ours. Harrison felt the weight of incredible responsibility settling on his shoulders. What if we make mistakes? What if we fail? Then you will learn from those mistakes and try again. That is what makes you different from us. We thought we had to be perfect. You understand that perfection comes through growth, not through control. The images around them changed one more time, showing Harrison a vision of the future. He saw a galaxy where different species worked together as equals, where advanced technology was used to heal and create rather than to dominate and destroy, where the mistakes of the past had been learned from instead of repeated. This is what the galaxy could become, the architect said, but only if someone is willing to fight for it. Harrison nodded slowly. Then that's what we'll do. The nexus began to fade around him, but the architect's final words echoed in his mind. Remember, Admiral, you are not just fighting for humanity anymore. You are fighting for the future of all life in the galaxy. Harrison found himself back on the bridge of the Endeavor, but he was not the same person who had left. The knowledge the architects had given him burned in his mind like a star, showing him possibilities he had never imagined. Admiral, called out his communications officer, we're receiving urgent reports from across the galaxy. The Council is mobilizing their hidden weapons. They're preparing to destroy entire systems rather than let them fall into rebel hands. Harrison moved to his command chair with new confidence. Send a message to all human forces and our allies. Tell them that we're about to face the Council's most dangerous weapons. But also tell them that we now have the tools to not just defeat them, but to heal the damage they've caused. Sir? The officer looked confused. You'll understand soon. Enough. For now, prepare the fleet for quantum-level operations. We're about to show the galaxy what happens when you combine human determination with architect knowledge. Across the galaxy, the final battle was beginning. Council forces emerged from hidden bases, bringing with them weapons that had not been seen for 10,000 years. Reality disruptors powered up, preparing to tear holes in space-time itself. Planet killers aligned their targeting systems on worlds where millions of freed beings celebrated their newfound freedom. But humanity was ready. Ships that had seemed advanced before revealed new capabilities that defied the laws of physics. Human vessels began to phase in and out of normal reality, existing partially in the same quantum space where the architects lived. When Council weapons tried to destroy them, they simply weren't there to be destroyed. More importantly, wherever the Council's reality disruptors fired, human ships were ready with something new: reality healers. The same technology that could tear apart the fabric of space-time could also repair it, and human engineers had learned to use both. On Nexus Prime, Prime Coordinator Vix Thalen watched in growing horror as his ultimate weapons proved useless against the human fleet. "This is impossible," he screamed at his tactical officers. "Our reality disruptors should be destroying entire star systems. How are they healing the damage?" "Unknown, sir," came the terrified reply. "The humans appear to be using technology that we don't recognize. That cannot be. We have controlled galactic technology for 10,000 years. No species possesses knowledge that we do not have." But even as Vex Thalen spoke, he knew he was wrong. The evidence was all around him. Human ships were doing things that should have been impossible, using principles that the Council's greatest scientists could not understand. "Sir, the human fleet commander is requesting to speak with you." Vex Thalen straightened his robes and tried to recover his dignity. "Put him through." Admiral Harrison's image appeared on the main screen, but he looked different now. There was a calm confidence about him that had not been there before, as if he had seen things that had changed. His understanding of the universe itself. "Coordinator Vex Thalen," Harrison said quietly. "It's time to end this." "Never," Vex Thalen replied. "The Council has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not surrender to a primitive species like humanity." Harrison's expression was almost pitying. "You still don't understand, do you? Humanity isn't primitive. We never were. We're the inheritors of the civilization you destroyed. That's impossible. The architects are extinct." "No, they're not. They've been waiting. And now they've chosen us to carry on their work." Vex Thalen felt fear creeping into his heart. "What do you want from us?" "We want you to stop fighting and help us fix what you've broken. The galaxy doesn't need rulers, Coordinator. It needs healers. And if we refuse?" Harrison's expression grew sad. "Then you'll discover that the power to heal can also be used to judge. We would prefer not to make that choice." For a long moment, Vex Thalen stared at the human admiral, trying to understand what had changed. Then, slowly, he began to realize the truth. The species he had tried to harvest was not just more advanced than he had believed. They were more evolved.